please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to CNBC TV18's 13th India Business Leader Awards.
Young Turks Startup of the Year. The Entertainment Leader of the Year award to Ranveer Singh.
Well, those were glimpses for CNBC TV18 India Business Leader Awards, where we honor and celebrate the best in the world of business. This time, the Outstanding Business Leader of the Year award has gone to Kumar Mangalam Birla, Chairman of Aditya Birla Group, and former Chairperson of SBI. Arundhati Bhattacharya has been honoured with the Lifetime Achievement Award. Good evening and thank you very much for joining us on India Business Hour. I'm Kritika Saxena. Let's get straight to all the market action of the day. After a bumper rally yesterday, markets consolidated and traded in a fairly tight range today. So the Nifty, for instance, traded mostly in the red, spiked in the last hour and closed flat with a positive bias. The Sensex closed with gains of about 30 points. Broader markets slightly outperformed today, with banks and mid-caps gaining about 0.5%. And speaking of equities, long-term capital gains tax rate may be hiked if the government brings in indexation. That's the word from Finance Secretary Hasmukh Adhia. He was speaking at the CNBC TV18 India Business Leader Awards. Listen in to what rationale he had to give.
Now, one thing in the LTCG regime which we have given so far, we are saying 10% flat, whether you sell your shares after 1 year or after 7 years. Now, that's a bit unfair. We have to, at some stage, bring in indexation. Now, if we bring in indexation, then we may have to sort of bring the rate of LTCG a little bit higher in order to give indexation. So, ideal thing should be, if we are having, say, for example, 20% capital gain tax for all other classes of asset, for this one also, for equity, listed equity also, we should bring it to 20%. For unlisted, for listed, for real estate, for all other classes of asset, it should be the same percentage over a period.
Okay, speaking of equities, inflows into equity funds have seen a sharp fall in the month of March. Now, from over 16,000 crore rupees in the month of February, March inflows have dropped to over just 6,600 crore rupees. So what could be the reason behind this fall exactly? Prashant Nair is here to put this into perspective. Prashant, you know, we have seen the trend of mutual fund inflows reduce, but how significant is this drop this time around?
Inflows into mutual funds have dropped. Equity schemes have dropped quite a bit in the month of March. You know, March is typically a pretty strong month because people put in money because of tax-related purposes. So this contrast is even starker in the month of March. Take a look at the numbers. The first one is equity, pure equity funds, which is equity plus ELSS. The number has dropped to 6,700 crores from 16,000 crores plus in the month of February. I mean, this is the lowest number in March that we've had, at least for a year. I guess a lot more than a year. You can go back and check the history, but this is a pretty low number. Look at the balanced fund number. Many include this with the equity scheme because, you know, 50-60% is in equity, in balanced funds as well. But to put it separately, balanced funds are doing a lot better, 6,700 crores plus compared to 5,000 crores that we saw in the month of Feb. So what really happened in the equity category? That's the biggest equity, the pure equity category. And for that, you'll have to look at the granular data. Take a look at pure equity, ELSS equity and balanced funds separately. In all three, what we've seen is that gross inflows continue to be pretty strong. Gross inflows essentially includes, you know, you taking money out of fixed deposits or other asset classes and putting into equity. It also includes, I mean, switching from one scheme or another fund house. It shows that number as well. So what that number shows is, in all three categories, the number there is an increase. So in pure equity, it's up 21%. ELSS equity, it's up 94%. In balanced funds, it's up 51%. But what has happened is that redemptions in all three schemes have gone up a lot more. At least in two of the three schemes, redemptions are higher than the gross inflows, and that's really the problem. I spoke to mutual fund industry experts, and they believe this is essentially a result of you know, tax-related selling. The LTCG tax, the 10% tax which was imposed, that resulted in this particular redemption number that we saw, and they're hopeful that gross inflows remain strong, and that trend will continue and net inflows will again look healthy starting the month of April and FY19. Back to you.
Okay, fair enough, Prashant. Thanks for taking us through that. Now, from the Wall Street to Wall Street, it is a sea of red. The Dow is down almost over 250 points at the start of the trading session. Fears of a trade war between US and China is keeping investors on edge. And of course, weak jobs data is also playing spoil sport. So look at S&P 500 losing almost 1%. NASDAQ, in fact, NASDAQ was down just about 0.2% an hour ago, and now it's down by over 1%. So that is a volatile figure there, and we'll be, of course, tracking that very closely. But moving on, former RBI Deputy Governor HR Khan was questioned by the CBI today as the agency continues to probe the nearly 13,000 crore rupee fraud at Punjab National Bank. Utkarsh Chaturvedi is here with the details. Utkarsh, what is the rationale as to why HR Khan was questioned today, and do we know any details as to what was presented by Mr. Khan himself?
So, Kritika, this is in continuation with what happened yesterday. If you remember, 3 general managers of RBI were being questioned by CBI in this case. Now, what we pick up is that the HR Khan, who's the former deputy RBI governor, was also questioned. Now, what we pick up from our sources is that what CBI really wants to look at is that whether any rules or norms were flouted by PNB in this case, and more importantly, was RBI in the know of the rules which were being flouted in this whole case. So this is what they really want to know, and in this regards only they have questioned the RBI general managers yesterday, and now the questioning of HR Khan happened. And now we really don't know how much time this questioning really went on to, but an important development given the fact that CBI has already arrested 18 people. They have moved on in the case, but there has always been a talk about what was the role of RBI in this, and was RBI too negligent in this case, and this is what CBI is at this point of time probing.
Okay, fair enough, Utkarsh. But, you know, the other story that you have been tracking since yesterday, it's day 2 of Rajesh Kocher's questioning by the Central Bureau of Investigation in the ICICI Bank and Videocon case. CBI's investigation so far has shown that ICICI Bank had mandated Avista Group to restructure deals worth over $1.5 billion for 7 companies over 6 years. They are investigating if there are any links over here. Utkarsh, what exactly transpired on day 2, and can we expect this to continue?
So, Kritika, it is at around 10 o'clock in the morning when Rajiv Kocher really arrived at the CBI office in Bandra Kurla complex in Bombay, and it is around 7:30 in the evening. So, almost 9 hours of questioning, before which yesterday also there was a questioning for around 6 hours. So, almost 15 hours of questioning by Rajiv Kocher. What we came to know from our sources in CBI is that the CBI is really looking at all the deals, especially the foreign currency deals which were restructured by Avista. CBI believes that they have evidence that these were mandated by ICICI, but we're also picking up that they are closely looking at both the restructuring deals done by Videocon also in this case, and also what is more important is that what CBI needs to look at is that whether there was any quid pro quo, because remember that having same business interest of Avista Advisory and ICICI Bank is not a crime, but what CBI needs to really probe and prove in this case is that whether there was any quid pro quo involved. So this is what CBI is looking at. Almost 15 hours of questioning has already been done. We will have to really wait and watch. Does CBI go ahead and file an FIR, and do they believe they have enough evidence now to file an FIR? Because remember, without an FIR, they cannot do a raid or a search at all.
I get that, Utkarsh, but what will be interesting to see if the other parties are also included in the case, because of course they were mentioned very early on. But thanks for taking us to those exclusive stories. In fact, we spoke to the Secretary of Financial Services today at the India Business Leader Awards. He said that the current developments in the banking space is a learning time for both public and private banks.
It seems like there is a move from public sector to the problem shifting to the private sector as well. How concerned are you about that, sir, in specific? I mean, you've got a government nominee on the board of ICICI Bank as well. What do you make of that situation?
See, the entire financial space, the public sector, private sector, both have very important role to play. And more than that, you have NBFCs, you have microfinance, you have financial inclusion. So a whole lot of financial space. I see a very distinct role for both to exist them in a right environment so that you have proper competition. And it's a good time for both. It's a learning time for both.
You quite literally are the man in the hot seat given everything that's happening in the banking space, whether it's public sector banks or private sector banks. Are you worried, sir, that there is so much focus and so much attention on everything that's happening in the banking sector that that is going to constrain banks, whether it's public sector or private sector, from lending forward?
Firstly, I'm not worried. I look at this as a clear opportunity in the crisis. I look at the coming year as a year where the entire cleaning takes place, the growth takes place, and synergies are established. When I talk of synergies, synergies are of operations, synergies and the space of strategy which banks adopt for themselves, and I see it a great year for growth.
Okay, moving on, the government is very comfortable with the RBI's policy and stance. That's the word coming in from Economic Affairs Secretary just a day after the Reserve Bank of India announced its status quo policy. Speaking at the India Business Leader Awards, he also said that bond yields could see a further reduction.
The bond markets clearly seem to be buoyed by the fact that it was a dovish policy that we saw the Governor Urjit Patel put forward yesterday. What's the outlook now as far as inflation is concerned, and what's your own assessment of the fiscal consolidation roadmap, because you've recalibrated your borrowing program, giving people hope that you are going to stick to the fiscal consolidation roadmap?
I don't think this is a dovish policy. It is a realistic policy.
It's a realistic policy, it's not a dovish policy.
And very realistic assessment of the inflation situation, very realistic assessment of the growth position, and therefore what RBI has put out yesterday is something which we are very, very comfortable with. You refer to the bond program. What we decided for the 6 months is actually not cutting short the program. We are evenly spreading the program in both the halves. So when we sometimes see that 48% of the borrowing program is what has been announced, if we take out the 25,000 crores by which we have actually reduced the program, what we have announced is about 50% of the total. So there is no backloading, there is no front loading. It's a very balanced, equally paced kind of program, and you saw the effect of that. And we have also aligned our issuances to the market demand. So we have spread the bonds across the different maturity spectrum, so that the issuance is meeting the demand as well as an even paced out, overall reduced program. And also this inflation outlook which has been put out, growth good, I think we should have a reasonably priced, which is what is already you see.
Yes.
And maybe there is some further reduction in the bond yields going.
And speaking of RBI, India's central bank has increased the FPI investment limit in government securities. In a notification, the RBI has said that the limit for FPI investment in government securities would be increased by about 0.5% each year to 5.5% of outstanding stock of securities in FY19 and to 6% in FY20. Now, basically, this increase means that foreign portfolio investors can invest about, say, 59,000 crore rupees more in government bonds in FY19. Moving on, GST collection can touch 1 lakh crore rupees per month after the first quarter of this financial year. This is the word coming in from Finance and Revenue Secretary Hasmukh Adhia. He says that there has been no decision yet on a potential cut to excise duty on petrol as well as diesel.
Your target is touching at least that 1 lakh crore rupee mark, sir, as far as GST is concerned. That will help you meet your indirect tax target. Do you feel confident? Because, you know, we've been ambling between 86,000 crores for the last 2-3 months. We're now edging closer, as I said, for the month of February to about 90,000 crores. Do you feel confident of being able to touch that 1 lakh crore rupee mark?
We should be able to touch 1 lakh crore very soon. We should be able to. Maybe in a quarter, first quarter, soon after the first quarter, we should be touching 1 lakh crore easily.
Okay, we will take a very short commercial break on that note. But as we slip into a break, here's news from the CNBC TV18 family that we want to share with you, our viewer. Your wait is now over. The market leader in business news is now available at your fingertips. Our website, cnbctv18.com, is live now. It's also available on your iOS and Android devices. Information Technology Minister Ravi Shankar Prasad inaugurated our website at India Business Leader Awards. Hear out what he had to say on this occasion.
I'm very happy, Shireen, that you have also going digital in terms of app. When the Prime Minister gave me this responsibility of the information technology and earlier the communication also, it was extraordinary experience for me to see the sheer potential as to how we can transform India. In a population of 1.3 billion today, India is home to 1.21 billion mobile phones.
A business story is a lot more than just a headline, and CNBC TV18.com is the only platform that brings you a complete 360-degree deconstruct of every story. From live videos, to articles, to in-depth research, to editorial opinions and guest columns, news, views, feeds, galleries, and much more. Get the complete picture in multiple formats, on multiple platforms, and multiply your knowledge. Deconstruct business news on CNBC TV18.com.
Welcome back. On to an important update catering to the salaried class. The Income Tax Department has notified a single-page return filing form for assessment year 2018-19. It isn't as simple as we were expecting, as the amended forms are seeking more information from taxpayers. Now, Timsy Japuria is here with the details. Timsy, essentially, the new form is going to be more cumbersome for you and me. Has the new ITR form made return filing more tedious now?
Yes, as you rightly mentioned, it is going to be a little more tedious for you and me, as taxpayers will have to disclose salary breakup, giving details about allowances that are not exempt from. Also, taxpayers will have to disclose prerequisite value and profit for salary and deductions under Section 16. Not just this, while ITR 1 can be filed by salaried taxpayers with income up to 50 lakhs and one house property and the interest thereof, the taxman has given a breather also. This time, the taxman has done away with the column to disclose cash deposits made immediately after demonetization. Also a benefit for senior citizens, as 80-year-plus taxpayers earning up to 5 lakhs can fill ITR 1 and 4 in paper forms. However, for all the other taxpayers, the normal procedure continues of e-filing. Now, for NRIs, a separate form has been notified for NRIs. They will not have to file returns through ITR 1. They will have to file ITR 2. NRIs can also provide details of foreign bank accounts to claim credit or refunds. However, NRIs now do not need to mention each and every account that they hold abroad. Apart from that, for businesses, it's mandatory to disclose income from property. Small businesses will have to report their GST identification number and turnover reported under the GST returns. Not just this, businesses with less than 2 crore turnover do not have to maintain books of accounts. Businesses with less than 2 crore turnover can also now submit their tax based on a certain percentage of turnover of the business. Taxpayers will have to mention their GST identification number and put it in ITR 4, claiming presumptive tax. So very clearly, it is a huge lot of a success when it comes to tax evasion, as the Income Tax Department and the Indirect Tax Department now would tally your ITR 4 and ITR and the returns filed under GST. So all in, the entire process for you and me is cumbersome, but yes, a lot of breathers also.
Okay, let's hold on to the fact that there are some breathers then. Timsy, thanks for joining in with that. Here's the big story in the legislative space. The second leg of the budget session of the Parliament has ended without any business being transacted. The session has been washed out thanks to repeated adjournments due to protests in both the Lok Sabha as well as the Rajya Sabha. According to legislative research firm PRS, the session is the least productive budget session Parliament has seen in the past 18 years, or of course since 2000. Also, it has ended with resignations from Lok Sabha MPs of YSR Congress. CNN News 18's Arunima joins in now with more on the budget session. Arunima, take us through the highlight. And, you know, of course, this is something that stands out after 18 years. But what are the numbers looking like here?
But the primary reason for this part of the budget session, the second half of the budget session, was to get the finance bill passed. Amidst ruckus, amidst complete chaos, without any discussion, the finance bill was passed in Lok Sabha. Rajya Sabha, because it was a money bill, it was a finance bill, even if the Rajya Sabha did not consider it, and if 14 days lapsed, it was deemed to be passed, considered deemed to be passed is the procedure there. So this kind of chaos actually was a loss for us, for the citizens of the country, because crucial parts of that finance bill, like foreign contribution to political parties, those provisions got passed without discussion, without any kind of scrutiny. People didn't even get to know what were the provisions made in the finance bill on crucial parts of the finance bill like this. Other than that, there were bills that the government wanted to get passed, amendments to the Prevention of Corruption Act. Last minute push was made in Rajya Sabha, but it could not be taken up. There were other bills listed as well. More than bills, there were issues like the banking fraud scam, which the Congress-led opposition wanted to be discussed. Government kept saying, yes, we want it to be discussed as well, but nothing happened. AIADMK MPs, by the end of the session, became responsible for both houses of parliament not doing any work. The house was not in order, and therefore the bank scam did not get taken up. The Andhra Pradesh issue, the no confidence motion that was moved, government did say that we have the numbers, we are not fearing the no confidence motion, we want it to be discussed. The point that the opposition was making is that if the no confidence motion was discussed, it will come out on record. Both sides, both the opposition and the government, would then be able to tell the people of the country and the state of Andhra Pradesh as to what really is the reality. Has the government done anything for Andhra Pradesh or not? So all of that could have been done, but sadly it all ended in din and chaos.
Oh, absolutely, it did, Arunima. Some critical issues there not being taken up at all. Thanks for giving us an important wrap of the Parliament session. But it is day 2 at the Commonwealth Games, and the weightlifters continue to bring glory to the country. So Sanjita Chanu landed India's second gold medal by winning the women's 53kg category. Deepak Lather became India's youngest weightlifter after he won the bronze medal in the men's 69 kg weight category. And on that positive note, let's wrap up this edition of India Business Hour. Thank you very much for watching. Have a good weekend.